In the great state of Wisconsin, there's 3 things we love more than anyone else. We love our beer, we love our cheese,
Now, the
and
gun
we love our
culture
guns.
is widespread throughout Wisconsin.
We love our guns so much that we have some of the least restrictive gun laws in the country. Here's a quick run-through in case you weren't familiar.
How easy is it to get a gun in the Badger State? To start, there's no such thing as a permit. For rifles and shotguns, the feds process the background check.
Basically, what's important here is that anyone above the age of 21 that can pass a 48-hour background check can buy a gun. Anything from a pistol to an AR-15 can be purchased with ease, although only low-capacity magazines are legally available. So I asked a few friends and set out to answer one question. Do less restrictions on guns make us any safer?
They're frankly too accessible.
You know, I definitely think that less restrictive gun laws would make us safer.
And our Second Amendment right is valuable, but there needs to be precautions.
To rephrase that, more restrictive gun laws would make us less safe.
Spoiler,
There's no simple answer.
it seems that people believe that more armed citizens means more safety,
especially with like those type of restrictions. So if they could have a gun on them or concealed carry,
and not in the case of self-defense, but simply as a message.
There, people would be much less likely to target other individuals for crimes of that type.
I get this gun, I have the training, I have everything, I keep it hidden in my house. Well, I have 4 other family members in my house who don't have the training. Gun ownership is never just an individual thing.
Are you going to rob the house of the guy who has the NRA logo on the window?
There is no better firearm to defend their homes against realistic threats than an AR-15 semi-automatic.
It's just going to create this perpetual situation of fear and violence because you don't know who's packing.
What world do you live in where you're constantly fucking ready?
But even if we can all agree on regulating who's legally able to buy a gun, there's still a problem. These regulations are useless with the gun show loophole, which allows private citizens to sell and exchange their guns without conducting any background checks.
Allowed her killer to easily buy a gun.
So here's what I gathered. Any restrictions to reduce gun violence and criminal access would need to be near absolute restriction to affect change.
Guns are out there.
They're frankly too accessible.
If you look at how many guns are already around, you're not going to be able to remove them.
Someone with mental illness shouldn't have freedom to get any arsenal that they want.
It's not like more restrictive gun laws means that all of a sudden, like, there's no guns in an area. So Chicago has a really restrictive gun law. But you look at like the high like crime and violence in the areas, and Chicago has some of the highest shooting per capita in the world.
That they're more accessible, not just to the person who purchases it, but to the people in that person's life. I purchased the gun, I clear the background check.
You know, if to have a gun you already have to be a criminal, then only criminals have guns.
My little brother wants to show off to his friends, and suddenly when he thought the chamber was empty, it wasn't.
Australia and the UK, actually, they've done very well.
Since 1996, Australia has seen a 59% drop in gun-related homicides.
Since the gun ban in 1996, there hasn't been a single massacre since. I don't know how or why this happened.
This is because Australia bought all of its citizens 700,000 some automatic rifles back at an extremely high price, essentially raising the cost of a gun on the black market to be too high for criminals. The problem in the United States is that there are over 300 million guns. So it seems likely that the black market's supply of guns wouldn't be low enough to cause such a drastic increase in cost. Especially considering a 2007 international arms study that showed that in countries that ban guns, 2/3 of the citizens defied it. Ultimately, it seems like the most politically mobile plan to fight gun violence shouldn't focus as much on regulating guns, but instead on regulating who has access to those guns.
You can't just have someone with deep racist views
It's not about the gun.
having an arsenal that they want without, hey, not everyone who doesn't look like you is a terrorist or is out to get you.
Step 1 is closing the gun show loophole.
$8 a person to get into this gun show.
People on both sides generally agree on the need for universal background checks and closing this loophole. But it turns out it's actually the gun lobbies that fight the hardest to keep this loophole open. Because increased regulation means less gun sales.
That comes from a place where we need to re-examine how our politics work. It comes from a place where we need to make sure our politicians are working for the people.
Unfortunately, there are no easy answers to this debate. Every logical argument has a logical counter. There is one idea that stuck with me. It's comical and a little far-fetched, but I can't find one good reason against it. Here's David Cross.
Obvious, sensible measures, like an ID, your thumbprint ID unlocks your gun. You know, like that's like a safety measure. You know, the same kind of safety measure we use to unlock our fucking cell phones. Maybe we can apply to an instrument of death.